Hey everybody, it's Kenya, and this is the Thank You for Saying No podcast, where we find meaning in life's unexpected turns. AJ Gibson, welcome to the Thank You for Saying No podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here. So I really feel like it was meant to be to have you on this show because your book, which is how I got connected and introduced to you, is so on point for the theme of this show. Because we call them no moments. And the no moments are like times we were told no, said no, or a situation didn't work out, but how we're thankful for that because of what it taught us or what it led us to. So in the end, we're like, thank you for saying no.
Sure.
And that's like your book, Flipping the Script, where it's you take your rock bottom moments and you flip the script on them and turn them something into more positive. Mm-hmm. So I was so excited when I crossed paths with you.
Well, I love it. I thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And by the way, how was the Grammys?
The Grammys were great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were very wet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because during the open of the show, Trevor Noah's standing outside of crypto.com arena saying how it had rained earlier in the night, but the sky was clear. They obviously pre-taped that because it was a torrential downpour from start to finish the entire night. We stood outside for 45 minutes in tuxedos and evening gowns waiting to get in. It's the first time I've ever attended an award show, not as talent, which is a different experience. Yeah, I'm very blessed to have the career I've had. I will never, ever again go to an award show like that, especially if it's raining, unless I have somebody who's walking me in a back entrance. Yes. It was horrible. I was drenched the whole night. Yeah. But it was a good show.
It seems like it was a really good show from what I saw. But yeah, so for listeners, we're in LA. Mm-hmm. And so, you're from Ohio, but...
Yeah, we don't know what to do with weather in LA. And that's the problem. Part of the issue was they didn't know how to wrangle any of us and where to tell us to stand. Mm-hmm. There were 2 doors open to the entire arena. Yeah. And everybody outside in the rain. Yeah. So LA just shuts down when it rains.
Yes, 100%. That's what happens. I drove to a Grammy after party. I was that person going like 50 miles on the freeway. I'm like...
Terrifying.
I'm like,
terrifying. Yeah. Because also the roads do get slick. It's a scientific thing because the oil from the cars driving over the freeways every single day builds up. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have rain regularly to rinse some of that away, it builds up even more. And in LA... Until this last year, we went like 10 years with almost no rain. Yes. So it's wild.
So I'd like to introduce you.
Sure.
For those who don't know AJ, he is a TV host, an author, and a motivational speaker. And he's been a host on Hollywood Today Live on Fox and Access Hollywood Live. And you might have seen him on Good Day LA and The Talk on CBS and The Wendy Williams Show. And he's been on some of Hollywood's biggest red carpets. And he's also the author of an incredible book, Flipping the Script, which we're going to talk a lot about today. I met you at the Soho House. It felt really aligned because I saw the event at the Soho House. I went, I heard you speak, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy needs to come on the show.
Thank you.
So here we are.
Well, it's funny because that event happened because I had gone to an event last year at Soho House. And Shayla, she's a writer, and I'd been in a writing funk, and so my husband signed us up for this event in that theater, actually, and I was so inspired by her.
Oh, wow.
We spoke afterwards. She picked up a copy of the book. She lived in Hawaii at the time.
Oh, my God.
Read the book, DM'd me, said, I love it. Mm-hmm. We need to do something. She moved back to LA, and a couple of weeks later, we were doing an event at Soho House, and she was interviewing me, so...
Was that the one I met you at?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wow, that was fun. So today I want to talk about your rock bottom moments, how you flipped the script on them, and how that, changed your life for the better. Mm-hmm. So I think we should start with where you grew up because you're from a pretty small town, right? Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I grew up in Salina, Ohio. It's a little farming town in Northwest Ohio outside of Lima, maybe, if anybody, or Dayton, 2 hours south of Toledo. Places not a lot of people know unless you're from the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And very conservative. I went to Catholic school, Immaculate Conception Elementary School as a child. And it was a confusing time because growing up in the 80s and the 90s as a gay boy in Ohio was it was a journey. Mm-hmm. It was, my parents were divorced, so there was that sort of lack of a father figure, and I had a mom, half a mom. I love her to death. She's still around. She's not dead. But the way she knew how to relate to us was through sports. So I played sports my entire life, and I was really good at them. And at that time, this is so weird to even talk about now, but at that time, the idea of men being athletic and anything other than cis straight was just too much for anybody to wrap their brains around.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know where I fit in. It was confusing. I had a great childhood, but also a really traumatic one for a lot of different reasons. So, and I talk about that in the book a bit.
Yeah. So how do you think growing up in a small town like shaped you as you got older?
I think growing up in a small town really did impact me in ways that I'm still probably unpacking now, in good and bad ways. There are a lot of great things about me. Like my husband's always blown away by this. We didn't lock our front doors. We left our keys in our cars parked in the driveway at night. Didn't lock them. He grew up in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah.
Right. And that was just normal for us. I didn't know that you were supposed to lock your front door when we went to bed at night until I went to college. And it's just because we trust each other. We know our neighbors. We know everyone in the community. We know the police force, the teachers, the librarians, the firefighters, everybody who does everything.
Yeah.
We know each other. So we trust each other. And in that way, it was nice.
Yeah.
But as I got older, I realized, as I was coming to terms with my own truths, that my small town, like so many others, are great if you fit in. Like, meaning if you have the same belief system and look the way that the people in that town look, it can be a great experience.
Yeah. If
you're any sort of other, you can very quickly be demonized. And that part of it has never been fun. There's a beauty and also a sort of narrowness about small town mentalities.
Yeah.
There is something idyllic about, you feel like safe, and the roads are nice, and the trees are pruned, and the houses are painted beautifully with white picket fences, and all of that stuff is kind of true. But underneath it all, there's also a layer of just a lack of understanding of the other.
Yeah.
And that never really felt right for me. Even before I really acknowledged my sexuality, I didn't like seeing the way that too many people spoke freely about any minority or about women. And that part of it wasn't really great. And it hasn't changed a lot, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've just gotten away from it.
So did you know you wanted to leave? Like, did you know you wanted to go move out of that town?
I always knew I wanted to get out of there.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, every queer person I know who grew up in a small town, for the most part, has that feeling. Many of us make it out. Some of us don't. I just always knew that there was something about me that could never be satisfied in a place like that.
Yeah.
There's a sense of security, but there's a lack of creativity and adventure and opportunity that I just couldn't stomach.
Yeah. It's like what made it safe also made it not safe. It was kind of both at the same time.
Yeah. The habits and the routines of the people who live there never change.
Right.
Ever. And I have a couple of good friends who are still there who I love and adore. And one in particular moved away for years and then came back. And to me, that's a different experience. You got away, you saw what it was like to live amongst different types of people in a city somewhere, and you made the choice to come back. I get that. I can't begrudge that. It's the never leaving, never considering anything else for your life. Just thinking that because you happen to be born in one location out of 8 billion people in the world, you're only supposed to know the 10,000 that live in your town. That's crazy to me.
Crazy.
Like, that's insane. Yeah. So for those reasons, I just had to get out.
Yeah. And where did you want to go?
New York and LA. Initially, so like every queer person, this is sad, but also kind of true. So I knew I wanted to work in entertainment,
right,
in some capacity. And without us,
Mm-hmm.
entertainment doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're just fun. We're talented. We're creative. We're witty.
Yeah.
We're charming. Everybody wants to have a gay best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that in New York and LA.
Yeah.
Real talk.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be on camera, if you want to be in fashion or film or television, these are your two options.
Yeah.
And especially then, nowadays, you can move to Atlanta, you can move to Chicago, there's other cities, you can move to Canada. There are a lot of other opportunities, but the studios only existed in New York and LA back in the 90s. So that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go to a theater school in New York, and my parents just didn't understand it and never supported it.
Because you were in sports. Kind of the exact opposite.
I wanted to be a dancer my entire life too.
Mm-hmm.
My cousin was a dancer, and I would go to see her. I think I talked about this. I would go to see her perform every year, and they're like year-end recital, and she was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
She was really great. She used to come out here to North Hollywood actually on scholarship every summer and dance.
Oh, wow.
And she was good. And she danced for the Ohio State dance team, which is the best dance team and collegiate dance team in the entire country. I wanted to dance, and every single year, the answer was always no.
Yeah.
Kids will make fun of you. They'll call you gay.
Mm.
Gay guys dance. And that was from my mom.
Yeah.
You know, that was my own family saying this to me as a young child, when I just wanted to go dance because it looked fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like it looked expressive. It was art.
Right.
That's all I wanted to experience. But when your mom tells you, people make fun of you, they'll call you gay, as if it's a really bad thing.
Yeah.
I never did it. So I just knew I had to get out. The moment I was old enough, I was out.
Is college how you left?
Sort of. So interestingly enough, I went to the University of Toledo to run track.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was a hurdler.
Do you still hurdle?
No, God, no. This was 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago. And oh gosh, my 25-year reunion is coming up this year. I graduated in 1999.
Are you going to go?
No, God, no.
Okay.
I dreamt about it for 25 years, and now as an adult, I'm like, why would I go?
You.
What are you going to do?
I haven't been to any kind of reunions.
I went to my 5-year, and it was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And they literally, my 5-year reunion, these two girls who were like the popular girls in high school got up on stage drunk and announced to 300 people or 400 people that AJ Gibson's gay and he's here with his boyfriend.
Oh.
They announced it from the stage.
Okay.
Which was just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, that's just so, like, can I curse? It's so fucking
Yeah,
weird.
So
it's
weird.
just so weird. Like, what about you is so insecure that you need to even say that?
Yeah.
In 2004. It was just odd.
Yeah.
So I will not be going back. But so I went to the University of Toledo to run track, and it didn't work out. I was overwhelmed by it all. And it was just too much of a commitment. 9 months out of the year, they do indoor outdoor season. So I just backed away from that, but I did try out for the volleyball team. They played volleyball in college for 2 years.
Nice.
During my sophomore year, I was also a theater major.
Nice.
My sophomore year, I came out to my family, and my mom stopped talking to me for a while, and it just didn't really go well.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really, really depressed. And it was the first time I probably sort of really dealt with suicidal ideation. I wasn't suicidal, but I was very, very very much in a dark place. And my grades just plummeted. I couldn't go to class anymore. I just felt, and I think my last semester in college there, I probably had a 1.5 GPA or something. Just couldn't pull it together. Eventually, moved to Columbus, Ohio, met my community, had my first boyfriend. He was trash. Got a different one, and he helped motivate me to get back into school. I went to community college for a couple semesters to get my grades back up. Transferred to Ohio State, went there for 2 years, and graduated from Ohio State. So
nice.
Never used the diploma since. Never used that degree once, but
excellent.
I have it. So, and I have the student loans to prove it. So that's cool.
So did you? Okay, so you went to school in Ohio. That was kind of your first sort of leaving your small city.
Yeah.
And then did you end up going to New York?
Yeah.
Okay.
I spent 1 year in New York.
Okay.
Had my heart broken. My college sweetheart and I moved there together. Really, I convinced him to move with me, and he hated it. He cheated on me with the lead from a chorus line. That's in the book. And after that, I said, I'm out of here. And my sister, who was my best friend at the time, convinced me to move to New York. She had just done some TV show for NBC, some special about cars or something
Mm-hmm.
with Kato Kalin of all people. And I don't know if you even know who that name is. You're probably too young, but Kato Kalin was the guy at the center of the O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson murder trial.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He was like, he lived in the pool house or something. I can't remember. So she knew him. So we moved to LA, and our first night in Los Angeles, we met Kato Kalin for dinner and had sushi on Melrose. And it was just the weirdest experience. I was like, so did he do it? Like, this is so LA and so odd. But that was almost 16 years ago, and I've been here ever since.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to circle back to some of what you just talked about and like talk about how you flipped the script on some of the moments that you described before we move into some more things. So first, maybe you should identify it, but what of what you just explained or what rock bottom moments happened that you flipped the script on?
Well, one of them is definitely coming out to my family and my mom just not talking to me.
Yeah.
She yelled at me and told me that I lied to her.
I
was like, well, when you ask your kid, are you a faggot or a fag or whatever verbiage that she might have felt comfortable with using in the 1990s, you're not a queer, right? That's not a way to ask a child.
Right.
You're not a queer, right? She and I are so close, and she feels so bad about that. She didn't know any better back then.
Yeah.
Her first thought was, you're going to get AIDS and die, and I'm never going to have grandkids. And that was it. And a lot of people still think that way, which is just absurd. And so that destroyed me, not having the support of my family anymore.
Yeah.
I never really lost any friends. My high school friends were awesome. Like my best buddy was amazing.
Nice.
I came out to him and his response was, and that's in the year 2000. I mean, he's married with kids now. That really helped me. It was important that I had my buddies, especially like the guys I was friends with that were all straight. They supported me, and that meant a lot. But that was definitely a rock bottom moment.
Yeah.
I failed out of school. I had no direction, I still look back and I don't really understand how I actually went back and graduated.
Yeah.
To go to community college and then get into Ohio State in my 20s. And I graduated college when I was maybe 25. I went for 6.5 years.
Yeah.
I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I did most of the things I've done in my life. When I look back, I'm like, I can do that again. But I did. I
think it's so admirable that you did it, because sometimes people won't try again because they're like, oh, it's going to take too long, or then too much time has passed and I can't do it. And it's just admirable. I want to point that out for the listeners that you finished it.
Yeah, I think it's important, because the try again is always when the actual success comes. It never happens the first, second, or third time.
Not for me.
It just doesn't. But that's just life.
Yeah.
And the more life you live, the more you realize that the thing that you dream of, or the happiness you seek, or whatever that feeling is that you're in search of, you're never, ever going to fully have it. You'll have it in moments, right? And then something else will inspire you. And that's life. It's a journey.
Yeah.
But when you have something that is in your mind or in your heart that is just speaking to you in a different way. Like, I have to do this. Like, I don't have a choice. I have to succeed at this thing. You can't give up.
Yeah.
You can't. Even if you failed a dozen times, you can't give up, because you're going to get it. Like, it's just how the world works. Like the law of the universe, you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
You just have to keep going. It might not be success the way you envisioned it.
Yeah.
But it's there. I'm a firm believer that whether it's God, universe, whatever you believe in, because I don't even know half the time what I believe in, but I do believe in a higher power.
Yeah, that's what I call it.
Yeah, and I believe that if you're given a thought, it already exists somewhere. If the thought is placed inside of you, that reality already exists. Your job is to figure out how to get to it. And we think that it's a linear path, because we also think about time as linear. It's not. It never has been. We sort of live in this space, like without sounding too woo-woo, but like we're in a realm surrounded by other realms. And we think we need to go from point A to point Z in a straight line. But it doesn't work. It's never going to work. The idea of a line isn't even real.
Yeah.
And I best describe it like, you ever have that feeling of sometimes just a wave of emotions come over you, or a thought, or a memory, a loved one comes to mind, or you smell something and it triggers something, or you hear a musical note that gives you goosebumps.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason those things all happen, right? And you're not moving forward thinking about grandma who died 12 years ago. You're actually with your grandma in those moments. She's actually there with you, or whatever the case may be. I've woken up so many times with tears running down my eyes because I was just hanging out with my grandma. She's like, the book's dedicated to her. I love her to death.
Yeah.
There's a chapter about her called Dead AF.
Yeah.
It's about my grandma.
I remember that one.
God bless her. And there are so many times I've woken up just tears rolling down my face, and I just had spent time with her. And scientifically, the human mind can't tell the difference, right? Doesn't know.
Yeah.
If it was real or if it wasn't real, which means it's real.
Yeah, I like that.
It existed. It happened.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how life actually is. Like, what you believe to be true is true. And so if you have an idea, a thought, a goal, it already exists, or it wouldn't have been placed inside of you, period.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't have the courage to chase it.
Yeah.
That's where people go wrong. They give up and they think, oh, see, I told you so.
Mm-hmm.
I was right all along.
Mm-hmm.
But your success, your achievement could be tomorrow. But if you give up today, you're never going to know.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of the approach I've taken to all of my rock bottom moments, because I had a lot of them.
Yeah.
But the older I get, the more I can look back and understand, have a different perspective, and realize, oh, I was learning something.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a failure.
Yeah.
I was learning something new.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like a failure. It might have felt embarrassing at the moment.
Yeah.
But I was actually learning something, and I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
Or maybe I will a couple more times until I learn it. Right?
For real this time.
For real. Hopefully.
Yeah.
And the second I think I have life figured out, something happens again.
Yeah.
But that's life.
I think life, so it's definitely not linear. In my experience, it's more of like a pinball machine. Like,
Yes.
I'm like, oh, that's not working out. Okay, I'll go this way.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll go
Yes.
this way.
Yes.
Until I get to Z.
Yes. Because that's the thing about, we talk about, like, one of the catchy words now is the pivot, right? I talk about the pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Great, whatever. But even saying to pivot is a suggestion. It suggests that you're on some sort of line and you're going to pivot in a different direction, right? Ain't nobody going in one direction. We're all just sort of doing our best to try to survive and figure it all out as we do it in real time. So even pivoting is, no, every day is a pivot.
Right.
All day you pivot 1,000 times without even realizing it. But then we're like, I'm pivoting now.
Yeah.
As if, and I think people say it, and I do too, people say it almost as if they're trying to let the world know, hey, Instagram, I'm pivoting.
Yeah. Algorithm, help me out.
Yeah, I've got control over this. Just so you know, I'm making this choice. No, you're not. You're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
We all are. It's okay.
So how did you get to LA? Can you take us there?
Yeah, that was after the breakup. After the breakup, my ex cheated on me, broke my heart. My sister got me to move to LA, and I came out here initially to be an actor. I took a 1-week intensive boot camp the first week I moved here, and I was ready. I had enough money in my bank account to last about a month.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I very quickly became a bartender and a personal trainer and everything else that every actor in LA does to try to survive. And also realized that I'm a terrible actor. Like, I have no desire.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at memorizing lines. I'm not interested by most people's writing. It feels inauthentic to me. I can't sell it. I'm just not a good actor.
How did you get into whatever was next?
So back in 2011, right after my new ex, another boyfriend, he had just cheated on me with my best friend. And that was a whole interesting situation in life. And we had been cast on a reality show on ABC called Expedition Impossible.
This is the one where you were doing very athletic things in the ground.
Very, very athletic things. Insane things. We did a 400-mile expedition in Morocco.
With the camels. On
camels, on foot, on, kayaks, on rivers, on rapids.
Yeah.
We slept in the high Atlas Mountains in a snowstorm. Just a lot. And we lived in the wild for 3 weeks.
Oh my
And
God.
I think we traveled 400 miles on foot and made our own shelter every night and had to make our own food out of rations.
Did they have food just in case? Like you got
So the
hungry?
first like week or so, they had just cans of beans and rice that we had to open and cook over an open fire, and maybe a couple eggs every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
And they realized we were all getting really, really sick and losing a lot of weight. So they started having catered food brought in the middle of the desert in Morocco. They would bring like these sheet pans full of like Chinese food or something that we ate off camera because they're like, oh, you guys are all dying. That's not cool.
Oh my God.
So this was a Mark Burnett show. He created, obviously, Survivor, The Voice, some of the greatest reality competition shows. The Apprentice gave us Donald fucking Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But he's an icon in the industry, right?
Yeah.
And we got cast on the show, and then I found out that my boyfriend was cheating on me. We made the decision to still go on the show together, but didn't tell them that we had broken up. But you see on the show, it definitely comes out. And we were a team of 3 with my sister, who I also write about in the book, who I no longer have a relationship with, unfortunately. But yeah, the 3 of us were on the show for, a summer. 2011. At the time, I was working in mortgages. I was working for a loan officer in Beverly Hills, cold calling people, talking about rates.
Yeah.
Like, because I've always been fascinated in real estate, right? Which is what I do now. Actually, I'm a realtor now. But back then I thought, oh, mortgages. I can learn about real estate this way. Yeah. Hated it. Did it for a year. Hated it. Got cast on this show. Went to Morocco. Mark Burnett was there. I got to spend some time with him for a week or so. And afterwards, they were trying to develop a TV show for my sister and my ex and I, because I thought we were really interesting on camera. The Voice took off, and they pivoted away. There's the pivot. Pivoted away from that type of type of reality and went for the big, we call them shiny black floor competition shows, which is what The Voice was. But he did say to me, "There's something about you, just so you know. We need to develop that." Whenever we needed a funny, like witty one-liner, we cut to AJ. Whenever we needed a thoughtful, introspective moment, we cut to AJ. We needed the tears, we cut to AJ. We needed a little bit of conflict, we cut to AJ. So I was a little bit of the everything of the show. Yeah. And he said, you need to use that and develop that. Keep in mind, I was on the show. The show only ran for 1 season. And one of my good friends from the show to this day is Akbar, who is on The Talk. He's one of the hosts of The Talk now and American Ninja Warrior. Oh my God. I love American Ninja. Oh my God. That's my favorite show. Big dude, black guy with a bald head. That's Akbar. He's a fantastic guy. And we were both on that show together. He lost to me, but he was on a team of former professional football players. Oh my God. And he lost to 2 gay guys and a girl who wore knee-high socks. And our team name was Fab 3. Oh, incredible. We did not pick that name. Oh. They picked it for us because, of course, that's what a major network thinks 2 gay guys and their sister want to be called. Yeah. Fab 3. We're like, what? Turns out every other team got to pick their name except for us. Oh my God. But because of Mark Burnett, I ended up getting into like hosting classes. Okay. And started hosting back in 2011, 2012. It's when I met my husband. We met hosting a podcast together. And we've been together almost 12 years, married just about 2. Oh my gosh. Yeah. There was a lot of moments in that story. So let's unpack it a little bit. I've got a lot of moments in all my stories. I love it. The book's full of them. So the being on the show was kind of like a bittersweet thing because it seemed really cool to be on a show and do something different, but you're on it with your ex who had just cheated on you. Yes. And that was the decision I had to make. Yeah. And in a weird way, after that, the show they were trying to develop for us didn't go. And I'm now glad it didn't. Like, I thank you for saying no sort of moment. Yeah. Because I would have then been, had it been successful, I would have been tied into a show with my ex and my sister, who I now don't have a relationship with. Maybe it would have turned out differently. I don't know that it would have. Yeah. I would love to have a relationship with her. We don't because of her. Yeah. But I thought that was our moment. I remember leaving the meeting with Mark Burnett Productions, is what it was called back then, and calling Mom, crying, saying we got a show. We thought we had a show. This is 2011. It's now 2024, right? But at the time, I thought this was it. This is my big break. Yeah. And it wasn't. Yeah. Wow. That is quite a blessing that it didn't work out then. Yeah. Because of how things unfolded later. I'm also happy where I am now. Absolutely. And I don't know that I would have met my husband. You probably... If I'd gotten a show, I wouldn't have done a podcast for free. Where you met your husband. Where I met my husband.
Wow.
So now it makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
But back then I was devastated.
Yeah.
I was really sad. I had to go bartend again at, Universal City Walk. I mean, this is what I was doing back then.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. And then how did you get into hosting? Tell us about getting your first hosting gig.
So yeah, I started taking classes because of Mark Burnett.
Mm-hmm.
And my mentor, had some connections. She put me in touch with my first manager who I was with until just a year or two ago. We finally parted ways. And I started out at a network called AfterBuzz TV, which was founded by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro many years ago. And it's how so many young hosts in LA cut their teeth. It's how we all learned how to be on camera.
Mm-hmm.
This was podcasting before podcasting was even really popular.
Mm-hmm.
And they sort of had their hands on the pulse of what it was. And for many years, they did very, very well. And so I hosted after shows for Survivor,
Ooh.
for Dallas, the remake, for a couple of dating competition shows that don't exist anymore. And then I filled in for a summer on the America's Got Talent after show, which is the least necessary after show of all time. It's like, who's going to recap like the recap of a talent show? It was just weird. But my husband was the lead host on it. And we met on camera, and we have the moment we met on camera for the rest of our lives.
Oh my God.
It's a TikTok now, of course. But so I did that. It was my last summer. I decided I was starting to get paid work.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, listen, I'm going to give you one more summer. I'll host whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
We had to drive out to Encino from 45 minutes in traffic every single time.
Yeah.
And it was just horrible.
Yeah.
And at the time I was driving a Chevy Equinox that was broke down. The air conditioning didn't work. And I would drive out there sweating my face off and then try to get on camera and do this little podcast. Looking back, I met so many people there and made so many friends.
Yeah.
And learned how to use my voice, learned how to work with others on camera, and learned how to interview. My first interview was Marisol Nichols. Not a huge name, but at the time, she was on a TV show called GCB, which initially was called Good Christian Bitches.
Oh.
But then the network wasn't okay with it. And they changed it to Good Christian Bells. And then it became GCB. And it was starring Marisol Nichols, Kristen Chenoweth, and I don't even know who else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember interviewing her and being late to the interview. And they had to hold the podcast for me to get there. And I was because I was stuck in traffic. Right. And I walk in, I'm sweaty, I'm a disaster. And I thought my career was over before it began. Mm-hmm. She might as well have been Meryl Streep. I thought it was the biggest celebrity in the world. I never imagined interviewing somebody like her. Mm-hmm. I didn't know who she was a month prior or a week prior, right? But I was like, this is it. This is my moment. But yeah, so AfterBuzz TV is where I kind of cut my teeth.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then where did you go after that?
So AfterBuzz TV led me to a network called Bite Size TV, which was a digital network. I was brought on by my good friend Kristen Brockman, who I'd met in a hosting class like a year or two prior. She said, hey, we're putting together this thing. Would you be interested? And so we started hosting. Gosh, I don't even know what it was called anymore. It was this 2-minute video we would do every single day about celebrity news in LA. Mm-hmm. And we shot it from the rooftop of the W Hotel, and I got paid $50 a day. Nice. And it was my first paid hosting gig. Mm-hmm. And I was so stoked. I was like, whoa, I'm making $250 a week. Are you kidding me? That's a whole bartending shift I don't have to go do anymore. Yeah. Like, that's how my brain processed that. Yeah. I'd made it. I thought I was killing it. And that show ended up being developed into a full hour-long show that initially was pre-taped. And they started bringing on more talent. And they brought us to Sundance to film a live version of it one year. And while we were there, our boss pulled the two of us aside and said, we're going to put you both on salary. Mm-hmm. And this is 2000, this was 8 or 9 years ago. And I was still bartending, still a personal trainer. And he said, we're going to pay you each $75,000 a year plus benefits. And I was like, what? $75,000 in 1 year? Like, I was so blown away by that. Yeah. Where I come from, I think my mom topped out at about that. Mm-hmm. That's what she made maybe at the height of her career, and lived very well in Ohio. Yeah. Right. I grew up with a pool in my backyard, 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom house on a lake.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I was like, I've made it. And we were there for a while. The show tested one summer. We got a 6-week test run on Fox.
Mm-hmm.
We waited almost an entire year before they told us they picked us up.
Mm-hmm.
We got brought back, debuted on my parents' and my anniversary, actually, years ago, back in September, on Fox nationwide. I think we're in 40 or 50 markets. And I was there for the first few months of the run, and then found out, I talk about this in the book, it's one of my first rock bottom moments, I got replaced. And I was the lead host of the show. So in my brain at that time, I thought, well, I'm the most safe. I didn't actually realize that it actually makes me the most vulnerable, because if they're going for a bigger celebrity, no bigger celebrity is going to come in and take the number 2, 3, or 4 seat. They want the number 1 seat, which is what happened. And I took one day off, took a Friday off to fly home for the weekend to go see the Ohio State Buckeyes. My dad had season tickets. It's my alma mater. They're the best team in the land. They said, what do you mean you're going to take a day off? And I was like, well, I've never taken a day off in 2 years I've worked here.
Yeah.
I have vacation time. Well, but you can't take a day off. You're the host of the show. And I was like, get a co-host. Like, get somebody to fill in. I'm taking a day off. And I suggested Ross Matthews.
So wait, this is a show that you created. Like, it started as a 2-minute clip that you did with someone.
It's the first time in the history of daytime television that an internet show was developed into a full hour-long live entertainment talk show. Never happened before. And at the time, I was one of 2 gay men on daytime TV. It was me and I think Clinton Kelly. He was on The Chew. And so in my mind, I was like, this matters.
Yeah.
I'll take a day off, get Ross Matthews. I want another gay guy to sit in my seat. I want somebody from our community.
Yeah.
And the executive running our show from Fox, also a gay man, loved the idea. Our executive producer, also a gay man, loved the idea. And I put the idea in their head. He sat in my seat one day and they thought, oh, interesting. He's available. He'd just been let go by E.
Oh, wow.
And was open. And a couple weeks later, I didn't have a job. And so that was difficult because me being a kid from Ohio, I tried to talk to my boss from Fox and said, hey, I just want to know, I would love to work with you again in the future. I'm early in my career. I want to keep doing this. Any advice? And what could I do differently so that I'm not in this position again someday? Not really understanding Hollywood at all. Just trying to be like, hey, let's have a real chat.
Yeah.
He lied to me about me being let go, even though I already knew because my agents caught wind of it.
Yeah.
Because they knew Ross Matthews' agents. So I knew a week or 2 before it happened. And tried to talk to him. He wasn't honest with me about it. And he said, honestly, this is what I'll tell you. We feel that you're all icing and no cake. Meaning that I'm just shallow and fluff and that I couldn't have a real conversation about anything, which is wild. Because any one of my co-hosts would tell you that I'm the one who wanted to have like the deep conversations.
Yeah.
My co-host just wanted to have fun.
Yeah.
And God bless Ross Matthews. He's all icing, but in the best way. He's made a career out of that.
Yeah.
And he and now that he's aged, I think that he has like those moments where he's like the elder statesman of our community now. And like you can look up to him and respect what he has. But he's never really been about that. He's just wanted to have fun and entertain people. And he's very, very good at it. So to be replaced by him and given that reason was like, the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
That messed with me for a while. That was really difficult to get over. But then I wrote about it.
Yeah.
And then I started traveling the country as a keynote speaker talking about it.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
You really flipped the script on that moment.
Yeah, I had to.
Yeah.
It was bullshit. It was a lie. And I think it's super important to understand, not just in this industry, any industry. Just because somebody tells you something or gives you an explanation as to what, usually they're afraid. Usually your boss doesn't really have a fucking clue what they're doing. Most people don't.
Most people don't.
At all.
Yeah.
Any corporation you work at. Most people have no idea what they're doing.
Not a clue.
And they don't want to get caught.
Yep.
So they just keep doing what they're doing and giving bullshit reasons.
Yeah.
And the system keeps going.
Yeah.
Right? But it's really easy to take it personally. When you press somebody like I did, he didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want to give me an answer. He gave me an answer. It was the first thing that came to mind, probably.
Right.
To him, it meant nothing. He's probably never thought about it again, unless he's read the book. But I've thought about it many times.
Yeah.
And I took offense to it. because it wasn't true.
Did it feel not true for you in that moment though too? Or did you have to reflect on it later? Like at first you're like, oh, is he?
It devastated me.
Yeah.
I thought that I was, and this is an issue I've had my entire life. I've had to work through a lot. I felt delusional. I felt like maybe I really am. Maybe I'm not shit. Maybe there's nothing about me that's actually interesting or worthy of ever being on another TV screen or in front of a crowd ever again.
Yeah.
Because he obviously knows what he's talking about. He's an executive at Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Who the fuck am I? Right? So yeah, for sure, it shook me for a long time. And it would kind of come back every now and then and rear its ugly head once again. Every time I had a bit of self-doubt or I was trying something new and got rejected, it felt like, okay, he was right.
Yeah.
He must have been right. I'm not shit. And that's also, especially this industry, if you're going to put yourself out there in any way, whether it is, I started in entertainment. If you're on social media, you're a content creator, you're putting your story out there, you're putting your personality out there. Not everybody's going to like it.
Right.
Most people probably won't. You have to find your niche, but it's really easy to focus on the ones who don't. It's hard to get over sometimes. This book, I haven't checked it recently, but I remember a couple years ago I checked and I'd had only 5-star reviews. Only. No 2, no 3, no 4. And like hundreds of reviews. So proud of that. I have 1-star review. Her name is Margot. I know the review. I have it memorized almost word for word in my head.
Yeah.
And she made a comment in her review that I didn't know I was going to be reading the book written at like a first grade reading level.
It's not true.
And I was like, fuck you, Margot.
Yeah. I read the book. That's not first grade.
But that hurt.
Yeah.
And I still know her name. I can't tell you one other review.
Yeah.
I know Margot's.
Yeah.
And I'd been on a podcast on Heather McDonald's podcast, Juicy Scoop. And she's a friend of mine. And I think this woman expected the book to be only fluff. Only Hollywood stories.
Oh,
I think that's what she expected.
Yeah.
And she didn't like what she got.
Yeah.
Because it hit a nerve somewhere with her.
Yeah.
It hit too close to home. But for me, I was like, I need to find this Margot. Like, I need to go find her and sit down and be like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Let's talk. I had to let that go because you can't move forward in life if you're thinking that way, but I still know her name.
We always remember the tough words that we've heard and the good ones don't have the same space in our mind.
Yeah. Why though?
I don't know.
It's so damaging.
It's so damaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that way anymore.
No.
When I can help it.
Yeah, me too. So I'm an attorney. I think I told you that. And I've had some tough cases where we didn't necessarily win in the like traditional sense of win, but from the standpoint of like, tough on crime from the environment, because I'm an environmental attorney. So sometimes even if we lose a case, the fact that like it still got brought, because some of our clients are the government, it sends a message is what I'm saying. And so that's why I say tough on crime from the environmental perspective. I just want to make sure that's clear. Yeah. But I had a guest on the podcast named Drew Morgan from season 1, and he was an attorney too. And I was telling him about this case that I was really bummed about because it was happening when we did the podcast. And he was like, if you're going to remember the losses, you have to remember the wins too. You have to. Yeah.
It's so easy to not. And I've gotten better at it. My husband still struggles with it. Yeah. Because he's exceptional. He's just the best human I've ever met in my life. I just love him to death. 12 years later, I'm not bored by him. I'm excited to see him all the time. I'm excited to talk to him. He's still hot. Way hotter than me. But I don't think I believed that stuff was possible until him. And I didn't meet him until I was in my 30s and just kind of given up on the idea. And one thing that he does struggle with, though, is celebrating himself. He always wants to move on to the next thing. Yeah. Because he's so talented. There's a lot of things he can do. And he knows that. And he's always building. And I've asked him many times, like, what are we building towards, though? Like, if we're not going to enjoy what we've already built, what's the point? Because us 5 years ago would be blown away if you told us all the things we were going to accomplish. And we did it. But are we going to celebrate it? Yeah. And I think, honestly, the week of our wedding, we spent 9 weeks. Can you imagine? 9 days in Mexico is where we got married, down in Playa Mujeres. And it was so magical. We had 100 people fly down there, and just the most supportive, loving friends and family from all over the world. And it was really, I think we had such a special time. He and I vacation really well together. We've gone to some pretty incredible places.
Nice.
But we celebrated ourselves for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of like lived in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that.
Yeah.
Like, it's so important to do. And one of the most stressful and happiest weeks of my entire life, because he also like shut down and just like lived in it. And I think it's important to do that.
Yeah.
Like, your body will give out
mm-hmm.
if you don't give yourself time to like relax and recover and celebrate yourself, and, you know, buy yourself a new outfit every now and then, or a new pair of shoes, or take yourself out to dinner, or
mm-hmm.
to a theater performance, or get yourself a nice bottle of wine, whatever it is
mm-hmm.
and a nice bottle of wine might be a $15 bottle.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That might be it for you. And that's great.
Mm-hmm.
If it makes you happy, it doesn't matter what it costs, but you have to celebrate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love, like, every now and then we'll do like a surf and turf. I don't eat a lot of red meat because it's terrible for the environment and it's just like awful, right? But when I do, we'll go to like the fancy grocery store. If you're in LA, you understand that Bristol Farms is where you go if you have money. It's like Bristol Farms, Erewhon, like there's stupid price, right? The prices are absurd.
$25 for like a water.
Insane, right? So we go there though and get a Wagyu steak, like a ribeye.
Nice.
I cut it into 2 though. I eat it for 2 days, and then we'll get lobster tails.
Okay.
And we'll just spend money. We'll get like truffle butter, and like it's like make like a whole thing. And for me
mm-hmm.
and my husband, food makes us happy.
Same.
So we have a nice meal at home like that. We don't go out to eat a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
We don't splurge on clothes very often. We don't buy super expensive. I wear Nikes most of the time. I'm wearing like my cute YSL boots now, but like I also wear them whenever I want to feel like cute. And it's like one of like the splurges I've ever, like, I don't spend a lot of money on nice things.
Yeah.
But it's important to like find out whatever the thing is for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do it.
And treat yourself.
Go get a facial. Go get a massage.
Yeah.
Go do whatever it is that makes you happy.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And so in this moment, taking us back to you getting let go from your host job,
mm-hmm.
were there other rock bottom moments happening simultaneously?
Yeah. So the book opens with me losing my job. In the span of like 6 months, I lost this job. And by the way, losing a job in Hollywood isn't like losing a job in the real world. When I lost the job, it was in Variety, and I was on the front page of Variety, or on their website, and it was me and Ross Matthews. AJ Gibson replaced by Ross Matthews as host of Hollywood Stay Live. Like,
yeah.
Like, that's not fun. I'm like,
no.
Do you really need to like print that? Like,
yeah.
Everybody just needs to know I lost my job. So that sucked.
Yeah.
And around the same time, my sister, my best friend in the world, sort of became a born again Christian. We both sort of did at the time. We got baptized together. We were going to church. She'd been going through a lot of personal issues. And I said, listen, stop drinking, come to church with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that took us in very different directions. Church for me was a way to sort of reconnect with my faith and figure out what it meant to me as an adult, not what it was, what was imparted on me as a kid in Catholic school. Mm-hmm. Like deciding what I actually believed and what I actually felt.
Yes.
Because I do have a relationship with God, but I don't know what that even means sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But for a while, I was like all in on church, right? I was doing white people, the band up on church, doing the whole like praise hands and like singing like rock music, but it's church. It was like real weird for me. I was like, what is happening right now? Yeah. This is not like Catholic church. This is not, there's no kneeling. This is weird. But it was a vibe. And then I was like, oh, Justin Bieber's here this week? That's kind of cool. So like that was it. But that's Hollywood church, yeah. Right? And so I was all in. Uh-huh. And God, they even say all in. They say, are you all in for Jesus Christ? I'm like, yeah, we're all in. So even the verbiage is so douchey. But so she had met somebody who was a worship leader who she's now married to.
Oh.
And sort of pivoted her beliefs on homosexuality. She'd been my best friend for my entire life. We lived together. She was good friends with my now husband for years. She used to bartend at the gay bar with me. Like, she was all in.
Yeah.
No judgment whatsoever until she met this guy. And so I lost my sister, which was really hard. And I mean, she's the only person I had out here. We moved here together, right? And then I got a tax bill after I'd lost my job and didn't understand that when you start to make more money, taxes are different. I was also making 1099 income for the first time in my life and didn't quite realize for some reason that you had to pay taxes on that. I wasn't prepared for it.
Yeah.
And I also lost my job in that time. So even if I did know I had taxes coming up, I was just trying to survive off the residuals I was getting and also got taxed on those. So it was a lot. And so I got a tax bill for $16,631, which at the time felt like 16 million.
Right.
And it hit me at a moment where I was already missing my sister. My career felt dead. My boyfriend, now husband, was waiting tables that night. And I got the email from my accountant at like, why she would send it to me at like 10 o'clock on a Saturday night.
Yeah, that's so rude.
She's like, and it was in the fall because I had an extension on my taxes, probably knowing I was going to get a tax bill. And I nearly took my life that night. It just, all those three things together just was too much for me. Yeah. And I was in the windowsill of my 10th floor bathroom apartment, just holding on, trying to get the courage to jump. Yeah. Because I couldn't do it anymore. It was just too hard. I didn't have my sister to call. I didn't know how I was going to get out of the financial. I never made that much money in a day in my life at that point. I didn't think it was possible to. And then I felt stupid. I felt like I got this career opportunity. I was hosting a national talk show on a major network, and it was ripped out from underneath me, and the reason given to me was a lie. But I was really believing it in that moment. So it was just, it was a lot. Yeah. It was a lot. And I think a year to the day, actually, after that night is when I started writing the book. And then 1 year to the day after that, I was in New York City promoting the book. And a good friend of mine, Sway Calloway, he's got a show on Sirius called Sway in the Morning, Sway's Universe. He's incredible. Yeah. He's like one of the best in the game. He's been around forever. Oh, yeah. And he had me on a show while I was out there and talked about exactly this. And I went back and rewatched that interview 6 months ago, maybe, because I've never celebrated it. And the way that he poured into me and the way that he hyped me up and the way that he saw my talent versus the way I saw myself, vastly different experiences. And 2 years after that night, I was sitting in a studio in New York City talking about this book, promoting it with one of my icons. Like he was one of my idols. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like I said earlier, it's like, get past the moment, get past that moment, the rock bottom moment, whatever it is, the no, because there's more. There's always going to be more. It's going to turn around again. It always does. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I know the listeners, I've had actually a listener reach out and ask if we had any stories about like family, like no's within family relationships. Yeah. And I told her, we're gonna this season, and I was anticipating you being on the show. Because the way you've come back from really tough moments within your family and like... Well, it's interesting because especially when my grandmother died, I gave her eulogy at her funeral because my aunts and uncles and cousins all said, well, obviously it's going to be you. And I opened up her eulogy making a comment about how she couldn't cancel my vote for Hillary Clinton anymore because she fucking hated her. She hated Hillary so much. Never once gave me a reason why. She just called her a bitch, right? I don't trust her. She's a bitch. Okay, Grandma, got that part. But let's talk policy. Like, what about her policy do you not support? Like, what about her belief system are you not? Because we can talk through those things. I don't know. She's just a bitch. Okay, well, cool. I'd cut off my left arm for Hillary Clinton. I just fucking love her, right? Yeah. I understand how she makes people uncomfortable, but if you actually like get to know her and what she stands for and what she's accomplished, we don't deserve her. Right? Like we deserve what we got with Trump. She tried to tell us. She tried to warn us, right? But my grandma wasn't here anymore. And so at her eulogy, I made a joke about, well, you can't cancel out my vote anymore. So there's one more vote for the Dems, Grandma, right? As she's like laying dead in a casket. Yeah. Like that's my kind of humor. And she would have loved it. Everybody like laughed at it, whatever. Yeah. But so I very quickly became, in a weird way, like the patriarch of the family. Even though I had older aunts and uncles and a bunch of cousins, and I wasn't even the oldest cousin, everybody sort of knew that I was like the glue of the family after grandma was gone. So I took that very seriously. I tried really hard to hold on to what we had and the traditions and the family bonds that we had. And that was destroying me because nobody else really cared about it quite like I did. And I was trying to hold on to this image of a family and a childhood that actually wasn't ever accurate. And I think many of us who come from any sort of trauma, and I know that word's used a lot nowadays, but any of us who come from some sort of family trauma can relate to getting a little bit older and realizing, oh, it wasn't what I thought it was. And I've really maybe covered up a lot of really like scary moments or memories in my life and painted a rosier picture so I could cope.
Yeah.
So I could move forward and feel like I'm worthy of something. And I think that's what I was doing for a long time. So I took a lot of shit from a lot of people in my family that I shouldn't have had to. One of them being my sister.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart. And I spent many years crying about this. But she doesn't deserve me at this point in my life, in her life. And I will always be here for her. I would drop everything for her and go be there, you know, whatever she needs, always.
Yeah.
Love her. I just don't like her. She's a really hurtful person. And she's very selfish and does not see what impact she has had on my life in a negative way.
Yeah. And
because I've almost taken my life twice. And once was just a couple of years ago. And it was also because of her. And I don't want to say because of her, that I feel like that feels unfair, but it was after an interaction with her where she let me know that she couldn't imagine herself coming to our wedding because she'd be crying tears of sorrow instead of tears of joy. And I thought we were fine. This was at my birthday dinner that she took me out for.
Yeah.
And I thought we were good at that point because we'd worked really hard to get to a better place. And I realized it was actually just another way to get close, another attempt to try to come at it from another angle for her. And it just devastated me. Yeah. I almost drove my car into a tree that night. And I just, after that, my husband really said, listen, no more. We're not doing this shit.
You have to set a firm boundary.
You can't. We're not. And my mom too. My mom, my family, like, no, don't. I understand. I understand. You shouldn't have a relationship with her. She doesn't deserve it. Yeah. You know, she doesn't see how hurtful she's been to you over the years. Yeah. And because I'm like, listen, I don't need to. I joke about things like Hillary and Donald Trump, and you could be a Trumper. The producer could be a Trumper. Like I don't care. I don't care, right? But like I have my opinions. Yeah. And I know why I feel what I feel. You know, a lot of people don't. Yeah. A lot of people have opinions. But like my grandma, they say, oh, well, she's just a bitch. I don't know why. Yeah. You're probably influenced by somebody. Maybe you haven't spent the time to like look into it. Right. And I spent a lot of time thinking about all of this. Yeah. And I know exactly why she can't be in my life anymore, unfortunately. Yeah. And that boundary is there. And if she wants that boundary to come down someday, she's going to have to put in a lot of work. Yeah. Right. She has 2 kids. My nephews, I don't get to see. Like that breaks my heart. Like I love them so much. Yeah. But blood is thicker than water. It's bullshit. It doesn't really mean anything. No. Especially if your blood is manipulating you or abusing you in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Like, no. And as a queer person, for sure, our community is really, really great at creating family because we've had to. So many of us have been, you know, ostracized from our own. Yeah. And we've had to survive. And nobody wants to go through life alone. I don't care who you are. And so I've had to learn to lean into, you know, my chosen family. Yeah. And my husband. You know, getting married is really funny. It does a really funny thing to you. All of a sudden, nothing else matters as much. And you have an obligation now, a duty to one person. Yeah. And for a lot of us, I think we put ourselves through a lot of pain and suffering because we put our wants and needs and emotions last. Yep. Right. And when I got married, it was like I put him first because he puts me first. And in my life, nobody ever put AJ first, ever. Nobody. even my own mom, I love her to death, but I was the easy child. It was easy to love me and to raise me. I didn't give her a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
So my sister got the attention.
Yeah.
Because she needed it. But that doesn't really, that's not good for a kid to feel like, oh, everybody's overlooking me because I'm not problematic.
Yeah.
But then all eyes are on me once you find out I'm a homo. Then I get all the attention. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of unpacking, a lot of teaching, family. But boundaries are important.
Yeah.
And I have strong ones now.
I think that's really, it just shows how strong you are and how brave you are, because when we have to make really firm, strong boundaries to people in our family who are, especially ones we've been really close to, it's like, how could this possibly be the right thing to do? To not come around, to not see you, to not watch you get old or have a kid or all those things, be part of graduations and all that kind of stuff.
I thought we'd be celebrating holidays together, taking family vacations together.
Yeah.
I thought this was the point in our life where we'd be doing those things.
Yeah.
And she has no interest.
But you have to protect yourself and your mental health, and you have to do that. And so I don't know the context of why the listener was asking, but kind of key takeaways of the flipping the script from rock bottom moments with family is really, setting firm boundaries and knowing what you need and being able to speak your truth no matter how hard it is.
Yeah, because you also, the funny thing about boundaries is when I was younger, we didn't talk about boundaries. My parents didn't learn about boundaries. These are my best friend is a therapist, so I've learned a lot from her, right? But we didn't talk about these things growing up. And boundaries, God, I'm going to sound so old right now. Boundaries used to feel to me very similar to having a schedule.
Yeah.
Right? It felt constricting. What they actually do is give you so much freedom.
Right.
And as a creative, when I think of a schedule, I used to think, oh my God, I don't want to have a schedule. I don't want to have to answer to anybody. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. Well, then I'm just kind of floating in the wind and accomplish nothing. Right? Especially now as a realtor, I have to be on it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm dealing with clients who are selling multi-million-dollar homes. I can't just decide to get back to them when I feel like it.
Right.
I have to be prepared with the answers and the disclosures and the documents and the legal, this. I have to have that stuff ready, and I have to cross my T's and dot my I's, or I'm getting sued and losing my license.
Yeah.
So structure and boundaries actually create so much freedom. And the boundary with my sister was goodbye.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. With my mom, it was, Mom, I can't talk about my sister. I don't want to hear about her. I don't want you sharing stories of how cute my nephews are. It's too painful. I can't.
Yeah.
I don't want to know about it.
Yeah.
I don't want you to try to push us to work it out. I don't want you to try to push me to invite her to my wedding. I can't have that. And my mom respected it. She never had a boundary in her life. My mom was chaotic in the best way growing up, but didn't understand that.
Yeah.
Until I said, this is what I need from you. And I'm not going to FaceTime you 10 times a day anymore either. Because I'm approaching 40 and I shouldn't be doing that. I'm not going to fly home 5 times a year anymore and stay for 10 days either, because Ohio's a shithole and I'm not going to do that anymore. Yeah. I mean, it's no Texas, thank God, but it's still a shithole. Yeah. And so I kid. I have a lot of friends in Ohio, but point being, I'm not spending my vacation time coming home to you anymore. I'm a grown man now. I'm not going to sleep in the guest room, and these are boundaries we have now.
Yeah.
But we can go on vacations together. I can meet you somewhere.
Yeah.
I'll come to your place in Florida, another shithole, but I'll still come there. The weather's great. The pool's nice. The beaches are beautiful.
Yeah.
People are a little wacky, but God bless them. Can't say gay there, but that's fun. So hope nothing happens to me while I'm there, because I'm screwed.
Yeah.
But boundaries actually give you a lot of freedom. It's so wild. I'm 43 now, and I'm so glad I am. I don't think that I thought I would be this old ever. And it's really interesting. I was reading a study about this recently, how so many queer men have this belief system that they're going to die young. We all think we're going to end up like James Dean, dies young and whatever. And I've always heard that and had so many friends who feel the same way. And I never thought about why. But our generation, mine, we don't have elders, really. They all died off during the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. So there aren't a lot of elder gay men in pop culture. We have Ian McKellen. Like there aren't a lot.
Yeah.
Because they don't exist. And so subconsciously what that told my generation is you're also not going to make it that far. I don't think I thought I was going to live to be my 40s, which is why I think suicide was an option. It just seemed logical. It just seemed like that's the way it was going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, my old former roommate, a friend of mine, took his life 2 years ago. And that was always sort of his belief system. And I've lost a lot of friends over the years. Luckily not close friends, but acquaintances.
Yeah. People
who were friends at some point in my life to suicide. All gay men. And I think the older I get, the more I realize, oh, it was all a lie. Society's a lie. Societal norms are a lie. Like gender's a lie. Sexuality's made up. Our government's a lie. Like it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It's all this propaganda stuff that we're just taught that we have to fall in line and be a certain way. And I thought that I had to be a certain type of man. I had to be a certain type of masculine. I had to be a certain version of, and one of my favorite stories, and this really articulates, I think, what I'm trying to say. A couple years ago, so I hosted another talk show, a radio show for 3 years called The Morning Beat. First ever LGBTQ plus talk radio show in the history of the country. 3 years I hosted it with my best friend, Michaela Gordon. She was roommates with Carrie Underwood on American Idol years ago. She's a singer. She's great. Jesus, take the wheel. And Carrie, speak up more. Say things for our community. You don't. So hosted this talk show for 3 years, and I learned a lot in the process because I understand, especially if you're not in the community, conversations about pronouns and what does it mean to be non-binary or gender fluid or sexually fluid, or it's transness is a lot for people to wrap their brains around. And it's easier just to be hateful,
right,
and to believe what you see on Fox News or whatever, right? And so I was learning a lot during that time period, and I'd interviewed somebody who had been in a marriage and transitioned, and their partner stayed with them, stayed married. And I was like, wow, that's impressive. That's love. That's really cool. I took the story home to my husband and I said, what would you do? Like, if I came home one day and I said to you, I believe in my soul that I am a woman and I would like to transition to life as a woman. And he's like, okay. I was like, what would you do? He's like, I'm confused. What are you asking me? I was like, what would you do? I went for it. I decided I'm going to live life as a woman. He's like, where's the question? And I was like, I'm asking you if you leave me. He's like, why would I leave you? And I was like, what? Seriously? I'm living my life as a woman. A 6'5" woman, by the way. I would not be a pretty woman. And I'm like, but you would stay with me. He's like, I love you. Why would I? Of course I would stay with you. I'm like, that's crazy. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I was like, wait, really? Am I a horrible person? Because I don't know that I could do that. If this reversed, I don't know that I could stay. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I would love you forever. You'd be in my life forever. I don't know that I could still be in like a relationship or a marriage with you. And he was just like, well, it wouldn't change a thing for me. And I think that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And what it did is allowed me to start questioning a lot of my programming.
Yeah.
Figuring out, what does it mean for me to be a man? Is it okay if my voice goes a little high sometimes, or I'm a little bit lispy? I had a speech impediment as a kid, my entire childhood. And so I've always been very careful about the way I talk. But I also can sound really gay sometimes. But what does that even mean? Is that okay? Right? And starting to look at straight men who I'm either see in the world or that I've been friends with my whole life, some of my family, and realizing how restrictive that life can be. Because straight men historically have been our tormentors as gay men. That's why we're always friends with women. We tend to have a lot of bad stories about straight men growing up. And it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, Latino, like we all have the same stories.
Yeah.
Women are our protectors, our moms, our sisters, our aunts, our best girlfriends, whatever it is. And so there's always been sort of a fear and just a lack of feeling safe around straight men. But through the last few years, for me, I realize in some ways how I feel so sorry for straight men too. Because if you really think about it, if you really break it down, I watched a video about this recently and it really hit home. The idea of masculinity, if you go back through history, go back to like Greek mythology and like the Roman times, who is upholding that now in today's society? It's not straight men. It's not. It's gay men. Gay men have the physiques.
Yeah.
They have the bodies. They have like that machismo thing that a lot of straight men just don't anymore. They're just dads. They're soccer dads. They're married to a woman and kind of like being told how to live their lives by their wife or whatever it is. Where gay men are still like wearing the Speedos. We're doing the nude photo shoots. We're like out there working out at the gym and like doing the thing.
Yeah.
Right? So it's interesting. This idea of masculinity has changed over time. And the way that I understood it growing up was one thing. And now in my 40s, I see it completely differently. Right? And I want that freedom for everybody.
Yeah.
Straight men included. I want us to all be able to be like, what works for me might not work for you. And that's fucking okay. Right? I wore my first high heels a few years ago and I felt myself. I was like, hell yeah. Nice. I didn't go in public, but I did it.
Yeah.
Right? I got my nails painted black about 2 or 3 years ago. Black. Matte black. Not even gloss because I was afraid I was going to look too gay, which is wild because I'm gay as the day is long. And I remember walking out of the salon to my car and thinking to myself, are people looking at me right now? I have my nails painted. This is weird. Nobody gives a fuck. Like nobody cares at all. But that's like that programming. Yeah. Right. And the more we can deprogram a lot of that as men, as women, whatever it is that we think we're supposed to be, the happier we are and the less rock bottom moments we actually have. Yeah. Say no. Yeah. Say no.
Thank you for saying no.
To the programming. Because it's all bullshit. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That was a really good story. I was really on that journey with you.
Well, good. I couldn't retell it again. I don't remember what I said. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
So let's end on this note. What advice, based on your own experience though, like what advice would you give to people going through a rock bottom moment and like give them a glimpse of light about coming out the other side?
First, take a deep breath and know that everybody is going through it. The world's weird right now. And we all know it has been for a few years. Yeah. We can all like point to whatever we think the cause is, but like we're all kind of the cause. The world's just kind of messed up. Yeah. And you have to find ways of finding moments of joy. It's so easy to look at Ukraine or look at Israel and Palestine or look at these conflicts that are happening and just feel like we're not allowed to have any joy anymore. Right? Like Jay-Z took down the Grammys and like, oh yeah, F the Grammys. But also Taylor won Album of the Year. Did she deserve it? Who knows? It's all made up anyways. Yeah. Right? So you can either be sad and upset and angry about things all the time or find joy. And I think one of the keys to that is having somebody or a couple somebodies that you feel safe and comfortable with. And it doesn't have to be family. Yeah. I think a lot of people, especially as they're struggling through rock bottom moments, they cling on to the only thing they've ever known. When chances are that thing is the thing that's brought you so much like turmoil in your life. Yeah. And oftentimes it's family or friendships that you've maybe held on to way too long. Yeah. It's okay to have friends for a season. It's actually healthy. Have a small number of friends that you trust for everything. And that might be in person. You might find your community online. I mean, the world is your oyster nowadays, right? And because I remember my therapist asked me years ago, therapy is also a big part of this, so go to therapy. My therapist asked me years ago, I was really struggling because a belief system that I've had that it still pops up every now and then, but I've struggled with for most of my life is that nobody likes me. Nobody likes me. Nobody wants to be friends with me. I'm nobody's number one. And I just annoy people because I talk a lot and I have a lot of opinions, right?
Yeah.
I know that about myself. So I never felt like I was the first phone call for any of my friends growing up, but I was the guy that everybody could call if they needed something.
Yeah.
But I was never anybody's number one. And my therapist said, "Do you want to have a lot of friends?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Do you actually want a lot of friends? Or do you want a small group of friends that you can really rely on?" I was like, damn. What I realized was that I wanted a lot of people to want to be my friends. But I didn't actually want to be friends with everybody.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who legit will not, I don't have a birthday every year. I do something private with my husband usually.
Yeah.
Because I know if I have a birthday and I invite 20 people, I have to go to 20 birthday parties that year.
Yeah.
I'm going to get invited to 20 stupid dinners at Tao or Nobu or wherever else, Cat,
Yeah.
and pay for overpriced food because I can't say no then.
Yeah.
So I don't have a birthday because I don't want to have to go to birthdays. So I actually don't want a lot of friends. I want 3 or 4 that are ride or die though.
Yeah. Like meaningful.
That I'm not afraid to be like, I feel super insecure right now. I feel super like vulnerable. I feel dumb and I'm going through it today.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I might want advice some days. Some days I don't want advice. And learning to ask for what you need is because when you get in that headspace, I get it. I understand it. It feels impossible.
Yeah.
I get so depressed sometimes. I'm like, I don't want to don't tell me what to do. I just want to lay here today. I don't want to do shit. Leave me alone. And that's real. And that's okay. Because I think a lot of times we want to fight it so fast. So if you are in a rock bottom moment, I would say just sit with it. Sit with it. And when you get to the other side, because you will, maybe then ask, is there a pattern? Is there something that triggered me that got me here again? Because I felt this feeling before. Why again? And then make a choice of a small thing that you can do in that moment to maybe not put yourself in that exact situation again. Right?
Yeah.
And in the book, I use script rewrites, right?
Yeah. I like that.
So at the end of every chapter, there are easily accessible, like actionable items you can do with me to flip your script as I flip mine.
Yeah.
They're like little mini homework assignments.
It's really cool. It's fun.
Yeah. And I think it's important because it's one thing to be like, I got over some stuff. Great. How?
Yeah.
Like, what did you do? Like, what worked for you? Because this shit ain't working for me.
Right.
So I actually wrote it out and said, this worked for me. Try it.
Yeah.
And none of these are revolutionary ideas that I've created out of like nothing to do anymore. This is just what I did and how my life changed because of it.
Yeah.
And so those things help people. That's awesome.
Yeah. You guys definitely get this book. Where can people find this book?
All over the place online. Amazon's probably the easiest place.
Yeah.
It's usually on sale on Amazon. So if it says there's only a couple copies left, they just always say that. You can still buy it. They do that so that it makes people look like the inventory is low. So it triggers your brain to buy it now.
Exactly.
Or it might be running out. So get a copy now. But no, Amazon. Also, my website is ajgibsontv.com. And there's a book tab there where you can find out more about the book as well as my other things that are going on in my life, my TV career, my realtor career, all of it.
Yeah. And where can people find you? Are you on social media?
Yeah. So I _AJ Gibson. If you just look up AJ Gibson, you'll find us.
You'll pop up.
Yeah. I TikTok, Instagram, not really X anymore because Elon's psycho. Yeah. But I'm still on Twitter technically. But I'm on Threads. Nice. I never use it. Same. I'm on LinkedIn. Never use it. So yeah, there you have it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And it means a lot how honest you got. And I know our listeners are really gonna. I
made it all up. It's all a lie, just so you know. So no, thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, I'm really touched by your story. And it really does mean a lot that you were here today to share it with us and just every single part of it, the good, the bad, and everything you learned.
I'm so glad you were touched. Also, I didn't actually touch her because consent is real. And make sure you get it, kids. Make sure you get it.
I I think that's a good place to end.
You know what that's called? A motherfucking button.
Follow and subscribe to the Thank You for Saying No podcast, and you'll get every episode as soon as it's released.